There has been the public programs that are called the Object Movement Dialogues, which we will hear more about later today, and which was very important to engage the public in this discourse of object movement or potential object movement in the future, and how the Kenyan public, but also a German public, would feel about this potential object movement.
Being able to present our constant evolving thoughts under different thematic areas under the banner of what we call the Object Movement Dialogues has been incredibly illuminating.
To recognize here, even before we delve into everything else I'm supposed to do, is to recognize the shifting position that has happened in the course of our own interaction. And so we recognize the primacy of the communities who are the creators, the creative brains behind these objects. And therefore, even as an institution, we kind of decided that the only way of engaging with the public and listening to their views is by involving them to talk for themselves instead of talking on their behalf. And so one of the things with our involvement in object movement dialogue has always been making the communities expert themselves. And in talking to them has always just been to give them opportunity to talk about their losses and how they feel about it. And in that process, one of the things that came out is that the communities are also not vindictive. The anger is there, but they cannot direct the anger at the second or the third generation of people who did terrible things to them. They recognize that it's not the mistake of the people who hold the objects now, but they are very keen that the people who are holding the object now can also right the wrongs of the past. That way, they will find a way of doing forgiveness if the objects are not moving. And for them, they will want to engage with these museums without really looking at the politics of provenance. So that if you tell them, okay, your object, it's in this museum, but we are trying to find out how it got there before we can decide whether it should come back. They find that one a bit disturbing. But NMK as an institution, we are also recognizing the fact that communities are questioning our own ownership of objects. So there's one of the big debates in object movement dialogue has always been, where do objects go when they come back? Should they go to NMK? And we have had various cases where people deny or they don't even want to have that. Imagine it, that when objects come and then you take them to national museums of Kenya, you'll just have replaced one atrocity with another. And so this process of listening communities also make us also question our own ownership of these objects. OMD has really been that kind of a push factor in even having institutions change their position as they listen to what community members expect and want them to do.
There's a really beautiful thing you said, which is that we are also community members in our own right, decentralized, and that we look to the public as an agent in their own culture making, as an agent in their own cultural narrative building.
OMD debates and engagement with the public, you find that there's been a lot of intergenerational connections because we have the elderly people with experiences, different stories they had from their grandfathers and their fathers about how objects left. And so whenever you bring objects, whether it's a digital repatriation or a photograph, and we are talking about this, the younger generation then become more aware. We are now having to deal with laws that we never created and which are hindering the return of those objects. Yet they think if the absence of these objects, the ways in which they were acquired would be looked at as violations of human rights, as outright theft, which is criminal, then the entire premise of European museum and American museum and any other foreign museum holding African objects will crumble, and therefore the moral obligation to right those wrongs and do justice to the communities will outweigh any other argument that are currently being used to block the return of those objects. So OMD to me has been that incredible engagement in which I learned so much from the communities we engaged with, and I see things differently. So it has also been a learning process for me as a community member and also as a museum professional.